My name is Candaria, and until a year ago, I thought my life was boring. I thought the most humiliating thing that could ever happen to me was forgetting someone's order at the diner or dropping a tray of drinks in front of customers. I never imagined I'd be writing about how my ex-boyfriend blackmailed me with a video and turned my life upside down. But here I am. I grew up poor. Not we can't afford vacations poor. I mean, sometimes the lights get cut off poor. My mom worked 2 jobs, my dad disappeared before I could even remember his face, and I learned to stretch a pack of ramen noodles into 2 meals. By the time I turned 21, I was juggling rent, bills, and student loans, all while working at Mel's Diner. My life was simple. Work, sleep, repeat. I didn't go out much. I didn't have some huge social circle. My fun was listening to true crime podcasts while folding laundry. So when Ethan walked into my life, it felt like fate. He wasn't just handsome, he was magnetic. He had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. He'd pick me up from work, tease me out of my stress, and tell me I deserved better than the life I had. For someone like me, who had never really been told she was special, his attention was intoxicating. I should have seen the red flags. The way he always needed things his way. The way he laughed when I said no. The way he'd twist words until I felt like I was the crazy one. But love makes you blind, or maybe just stupid. One night, he convinced me to let him record us. "It's just for us," he whispered. "I'll never show anyone. You trust me, right?" And like the naive girl I was, I nodded. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe love meant safety. Fast forward 2 years later, Ethan dumped me for someone else. Some girl from his gym with perfect hair, a perfect smile, and, apparently, a perfect family bank account. I should have been relieved to be rid of him. But heartbreak isn't logical. I spent months blaming myself, thinking I wasn't enough. I was just starting to pick myself up when the first message arrived. It was during a late shift at the diner. I was standing behind the counter, exhausted, smelling like grease and coffee, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "If you don't pay me $5,000, I'll leak your video." I laughed out loud. 5 million? As if I had $500, let alone millions. I figured it was some scam bot. I shoved the phone back in my apron and kept working, but the messages kept coming. "Don't ignore me. You know what I'm talking about." That night with Ethan. My stomach dropped. How did they know about that? I went into the bathroom, locked the stall, and typed back with trembling fingers. "Who is this? Doesn't matter. Pay or I leak." "I don't have that kind of money. Please, you've got the wrong person." "No, I know exactly who you are, Candaria. You work at Mel's Diner. You live in that dump on Lincoln Street. Don't test me." I froze. My heart pounded so hard, I thought I might pass out right there on the grimy bathroom floor. Whoever this was, they knew everything. For the next 3 days, I lived in panic. I begged, I explained. I told them over and over I didn't have money. I even offered to give them what little was in my bank account, $278.43. Pathetic. But they didn't care. On the 3rd morning, I woke up to a nightmare. My phone had exploded with notifications. DMs, emails, texts from numbers I didn't recognize. My Instagram was tagged in random accounts. People I hadn't spoken to since high school were messaging me with pity, disgust, or curiosity. The video was out. I opened one of the links, and there it was, me. Something I had trusted Ethan with, now splattered across the internet for strangers to consume. I can't describe the kind of nausea that hit me. My skin felt like it wasn't mine anymore. Like the whole world had stolen it. By the time I got to work, people were whispering. I could see the way customers looked at me. Longer stares, smirks, the quick glances at their phones when I walked past. My manager pulled me aside. "Candaria, I think you should take some time off. This situation, it's not good for business. Not good for business." Like I was some kind of contaminant. Like I had done something wrong. I went home early that day. I shut my blinds. I curled up in bed and cried until my body ached. I thought about quitting. I thought about moving to another city, starting over. I thought about just ending it all. Because in those moments, it felt like my life was already over. But somewhere between those tears, something shifted. I replayed the messages in my head. The words, the details, the video. And then it clicked. There was only one person who could have done this, one person who had the video, one person who knew my job, my address, my weaknesses. Ethan. It wasn't some hacker. It wasn't a stranger. It was him. The man who once told me I was his everything. The man who smiled while stabbing me in the back. The man who thought he could destroy me and walk away. And that's when the shame started burning into something else. Not fear, not sadness. Something sharper, revenge. Because if Ethan thought he had won, he was dead wrong. After the video leak, I disappeared from the world. I stopped going to the diner. I stopped answering calls from my mom, my few friends, even the landlord who wanted rent. For days I lived in shadows, curtains drawn, lights off, phone on silent. My only companions were shame and silence, but silence can be dangerous, because when you're left alone with your thoughts long enough, pain mutates into anger, and my anger had a name. Ethan. The discovery at first, I wasn't sure. I mean, yes, Ethan was the only one with the video, but the texts had come from a fake number. I wanted to be certain before I destroyed what little was left of him, so I started digging. I created a fake account on an app Ethan loved, Snapgram. I knew his patterns. He was addicted to showing off, gym selfies, expensive dinners, designer clothes he couldn't really afford. He loved attention like oxygen. One night, scrolling through his stories, I noticed something. A new watch. Flashy. Gold, stupidly expensive. He tagged it with, "New gift. Big moves coming soon." It made my blood boil. Ethan was unemployed, living off women, always borrowing money and never paying back. How the hell could he suddenly afford a watch like that? Unless he had found another way to get rich. By extorting me. I felt sick, but the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. He knew about my insecurities. He knew I'd be too broke to pay, which meant he didn't just want money, he wanted to destroy me, to watch me crumble while he thrived. And in that moment, I swore I wouldn't just survive this. I'd make him regret ever touching my life. The fallout. Before I could plan, though, I had to survive the fallout. The video was everywhere. Strangers sent me disgusting messages. Some begged to meet up, some called me names I won't repeat. Every ding of my phone was a knife in my gut. At the diner, my coworkers split into two camps. Half avoided me completely, afraid my shame might rub off on them. The other half whispered behind my back, loud enough for me to hear. She should have known better. Why would you ever let someone film that? God, she must be desperate. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab them by the shoulders and shout, "It wasn't my fault. I trusted him." But society doesn't care about context. A leaked video doesn't make people pity you, it makes them judge you. And I was drowning under their judgment. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment with Ethan. His laughter, his promises, his fake sincerity. He had stripped me of dignity, of work, of friends, but not of my will. The turning. Point one morning, after nearly 2 weeks of isolation, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. My eyes were swollen, my hair tangled, my skin pale. I thought, this is what he wants. He wants me broken. He wants me to disappear. And suddenly, I felt something spark inside me. No. I wasn't going to let Ethan win. I remembered something my mom used to tell me when I was a kid, whenever we didn't have enough food or the bills piled up. We might be poor, but we are not weak. Those words rang in my head like a battle cry. I wasn't weak. And if Ethan thought I'd roll over and die, he was about to learn just how strong desperation can make someone. Planting the seeds, I began with information. I started messaging people Ethan knew, pretending to be casual, catching up, asking about him. His cousin let slip that Ethan had been bragging about a new income stream. His gym buddy mentioned Ethan had been flashing cash around. And one girl, someone I recognized from his Snapgram, told me he'd recently taken her to an expensive steakhouse. He was spending my humiliation. That night, rage kept me awake. I lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, planning. Ethan had hurt me, but what if I could turn the tables? What if I could use his arrogance, his vanity, his hunger for status against him? Revenge wasn't just about hurting him back. It was about taking everything he valued, his image, his ego, his freedom, and crushing it. But to do that, I needed to be smart, careful, precise, and most of all, patient, Ethan's weakness. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Ethan's biggest weakness wasn't money. It wasn't even women. It was his need to be admired. He thrived on people. Thinking he was successful, rich, powerful, untouchable. So what if I gave him exactly that? What if I dangled the illusion of power in front of him, only to pull it away and watch him crash? The thought sent chills down my spine. Not fear this time, excitement. For the first time since the video leaked, I felt control creeping back into my hands. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The resolve I wrote in my journal that night, something I hadn't done since high school. Ethan thinks he ruined me. He thinks I'll crawl into a hole and never come out. But he doesn't know me anymore. I'm not his weak, naive girlfriend. I'm stronger, and I'll make sure the world sees him for who he really is. I closed the journal and smiled. Ahiyai's my real smile for the first time in weeks because my revenge story had just begun. I don't know if you've ever hit that point in life where pain sharpens into something else. For me, it wasn't just survival anymore. It was transformation. I had gone from crying on the floor of my tiny apartment to staring at myself in the mirror and whispering, he doesn't know who he's dealing with. I had been weak once. Never again. If Ethan wanted a war, I was going to bring it. Knowing the enemy. The first rule of revenge is simple. Know your enemy better than they know themselves. I made Ethan my obsession. I followed every account he had on social media, under fake profiles, of course. He was reckless online, always hungry for likes, for attention. He posted gym progress pics, expensive meals, new clothes, even bottles of champagne he couldn't possibly afford. It didn't take long for me to confirm what I suspected. Ethan wasn't just extorting me. He was blowing through the money like a child in a candy store. He wasn't planning for the future. He was burning fast and hot. That was good. That meant he was vulnerable. I started keeping a file on him, screenshots of posts, timestamps, comments from friends. I tracked patterns, where he went, who he hung out with, what hours he was most active. He was so predictable it was almost laughable. This man thought he was a mastermind? No. He was a peacock, strutting around, blind to the hawk circling above him. The mask, to destroy Ethan, I couldn't just confront him. If I accused him directly, he'd deny it, delete evidence, maybe even disappear. I needed him to trust me, or at least trust the mask I would wear, so I created a new identity. On social media, she was Serena Blake, wealthy, sophisticated, successful. Serena was everything Ethan worshipped. I built her carefully, stock images, for profile pictures, curated posts of luxury travel, expensive cocktails, designer outfits. I joined forums, commented on high-profile pages, built her into someone believable, and then I set her loose in Ethan's orbit. It didn't take long. Within a week, Ethan followed Serena back. Within 2, he was liking her posts. By the 3rd week, he slid into her DMs. Ethan. Hey gorgeous, love your vibe. You from around here? Serena, me. Depends. Maybe I'll tell you over a drink. I almost laughed out loud when I saw it. The same lines he had once used on me, recycled without shame. Hook. Line. Sinker. Feeding the ego over the next month, I reeled him in. Serena flirted, praised his muscles, asked about his business ventures. Ethan puffed up like a balloon, bragging about deals, about money, about connections he didn't have. I let him feel important. I let him think he was in control. What he didn't know was that every conversation was a thread, every screenshot another knot in the rope I was tying around his neck. He told Serena things he never would have admitted to me. He hinted at making money from people who deserved it. He bragged about having videos that could ruin lives. He even said he was untouchable because he used fake numbers and VPNs. Perfect. He was confessing without even realizing it. Setting the trap, but I didn't just want Ethan to confess. I wanted him to collapse. So Serena became an opportunity he couldn't resist. I told him I worked in luxury branding and was looking for new partners. I dangled the idea of money, status, connections, the very things Ethan drooled over. His ego did the rest. He begged Serena for a meeting. At first, I resisted. I don't just meet anyone. Prove you're serious. That's when he slipped. He sent proof of his money, screenshots of payments, including one where I recognized my own blurred-out name in the transaction history. He was sloppy, greedy, reckless, and I was ready. The surveillance, but I wasn't just relying on online games. I wanted hard evidence. I borrowed an old camera from a coworker at the diner who dabbled in photography. I staked out Ethan's favorite gym, his hangout bars, his flashy restaurants. It felt like something out of a movie. Me in my beat-up car, hood up, lens trained on him as he strutted around, pretending he was a king. Every picture I took was a brick in the wall I was building around him. He thought he had ruined me. He thought I was powerless. But in reality, I was writing his obituary. Slowly, carefully, beautifully. The temptation one night, after weeks of laying groundwork, Ethan finally broke. Ethan. Serena, I think you're the kind of woman I've been waiting for. You're not like the others. You understand ambition. Serena. Ambition is useless without discipline. Do you have that? Ethan. Of course. I know how to get what I want. Always. My fingers trembled as I typed back, but not from nerves, from excitement. He was so predictable. So arrogant. And I was leading him straight to his downfall, my secret weapon. There was one more piece I needed for my revenge to be complete. Allies. I reached out, quietly, to a few people Ethan had screwed over. An old roommate he never paid back. A girl he ghosted after borrowing her car and returning it dented. Even a former co-worker he scammed. I told them who I was, what he had done to me, what I planned to do. And to my surprise, they didn't just sympathize. They wanted in. Turns out, Ethan had left a trail of wreckage everywhere he went. I wasn't his first victim, but I was determined to be his last. Together, we began building a case. Witnesses, screenshots, pictures, testimonies. Ethan wasn't just a bad ex, he was a parasite, and soon everyone would see it. The calm before. The storm by the time a month had passed, Ethan thought he was on the verge of something huge. He thought Serena was about to introduce him to investors, money, opportunities. He was blinded by greed. And I was ready to pull the rug out from under him. But I didn't rush, I savored it. Because revenge isn't about speed, it's about precision. And as I looked at the mountain of evidence I had built, screenshots, photos, testimonies, confessions, I realized something. Ethan had taken my dignity, but I was about to take everything else. I had spent weeks weaving my web, and now Ethan was right where I wanted him, caught, blind, and too arrogant to even realize it. He thought he was about to meet Serena, the wealthy investor who could change his life. What he didn't know was that Serena wasn't real, and his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even imagine. I told Ethan that Serena's firm was hosting a small networking dinner. Private, exclusive, only for people with ambition and vision. He nearly tripped over himself agreeing to come. Ethan. Finally, someone who recognizes my potential. Serena. Potential means nothing without proof. Dress sharp, be ready to pitch. He promised he'd bring his best self. I almost laughed. His best self was nothing more than a fraud wrapped in cheap cologne. Meanwhile, I was preparing everything behind the scenes. The networking dinner was actually a rented private room in a downtown restaurant. Nothing fancy, but with dim lighting and polished tables, it would do the job. My allies, people Ethan had scammed, lied to, or used, would be there, posing as investors. They didn't need scripts. Their hatred for him was enough to fuel the performance, and hidden in the corner? A small camera, already recording. Ethan showed up 20 minutes late, of course. He always had to make an entrance. He wore a too-tight suit, probably rented, and that flashy gold watch he loved to show off. Serena? He asked, scanning the room. I didn't show myself, of course. Instead, one of my allies, Claire, the girl whose car he had wrecked, greeted. Him. Serena's on her way, she lied smoothly. But she wanted us to get started. She values efficiency. Ethan bought it instantly. His ego was too inflated to question anything. For the next hour, we let Ethan brag. He went on and on about his business ventures, his strategies, his connections. He lied through his teeth, but that was the point. Every word was being recorded. At one point, Claire asked, "And how exactly do you generate income?" Ethan smirked. "Let's just say I know how to leverage weaknesses. People pay to keep things private, and I know how to make sure they pay big. A.T. Heart pounded. He had just admitted it, on camera. But he wasn't done. He bragged about using fake numbers, VPNs, burner phones. He said no one could ever trace anything back to him. He even joked, "Hell, I could ruin any woman's life if I wanted. I already have." The others gasped on cue. Ethan laughed, thinking he was impressing them. What he didn't know was that every word was another nail in his coffin. After an hour, Claire excused herself and stepped out. A moment later, I walked in. Not as Serena, not as anyone fake, as myself, Candaria. His face went pale. The smug smile melted. What the hell are you doing here? Funny, I said calmly, pulling out a chair. I could ask you the same thing, he stammered, eyes darting around the room. This isn't what it looks like. Oh, it's exactly what it looks like, I replied. Go ahead, tell them who you really are, Ethan. For the first time, he was speechless. And that's when I dropped the bomb. You know this whole night? It's been recorded. Every single lie, every confession, every disgusting word you said about ruining women's lives. It's all here. His jaw clenched. You wouldn't. I leaned forward, smiling. I already did. Ethan tried to grab the camera, but two of my allies stepped in. He shouted, cursed, threatened lawsuits, even tried to flip the table. But the more he raged, the more pathetic he looked. Finally, I stood up, towering over him, even though my knees were shaking. You thought you could destroy me, I said, voice steady. You thought you could shame me into silence. But here's the truth, Ethan. You don't get to win. Not this time. I slid my phone across the table, showing him the live stream. The entire dinner had been broadcast privately to a lawyer, a journalist, and the police, his face drained of color. You set me up, he whispered. No, I said. You set yourself up. I just let you talk. Arrest. 2 weeks later, Ethan was arrested. The evidence was airtight. Video recordings, testimonies, financial trails from the extortion attempts. He couldn't wriggle out of it. Not this time. The media called him the predator of Lincoln Street. His flashy lifestyle crumbled overnight. Friends abandoned him. His reputation burned. And me? For the first time in months, I walked into the diner with my head held high. People still whispered, but it wasn't pity anymore. It was respect. I wasn't just the girl with the leaked video. I was the girl who fought back, who turned humiliation into justice. One night, weeks after his arrest, I sat on my balcony with a cheap bottle of wine and looked out at the city lights. I thought about the girl I had been, the one crying on the bathroom floor, begging for mercy. And then I thought about the woman I had become, the one who stared down her worst nightmare and won. I whispered to the night, not for Ethan, but for myself. You don't get to define me anymore. I do. And with that, I closed the chapter. Justice didn't erase what Ethan had done. The internet is forever, and scars don't just vanish. But revenge gave me something I thought I'd lost forever, my power. My name is Candaria. My ex tried to ruin me, but instead he ruined himself, and I'll never let anyone silence me again. This was Candaria's story, but now I want to hear yours. What's the most shocking revenge story you've ever heard? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more epic tales of justice served cold.